Hey, what's up guys? It's Exumer talking to you here. And today I want to talk about the recent rumors that have been floating around about the 15-inch MacBook Air with the M2 chip. Firstly, we heard from Mark Gurman that this wasn't supposed to be coming out. Apple have tested up some of their employees and they've tested up this idea, but they ended up deciding not to go forward with it. But recently, a lot of credible sources have been talking about otherwise, and even Ross Young talked about this fact. So, as it is a 98 to 97% accurate source now, I do believe this is correct. And so, is it a good thing that Apple is launching a 15-inch MacBook Air? And how does it compare to the bigger brother 16-inch MacBook Pro that I have behind me? So, this is a very interesting question that we have to pose now before Apple launches it, because it's actually very important. There's a lot of people that want a big computer and they have not decided if they should wait for this 15-inch MacBook Air, which surely will be more cheap than this current 16-inch MacBook Pro, or should they just pull the trigger and buy this MacBook Pro now and save them 1 year or 1 year and a half until we see this computer, because it's far away. That I can guarantee you. It's not coming with this batch of the redesigned M2 MacBook Air. So this is a very interesting topic. If you want to know more about this, follow my channel. We'll publish videos about MacBook Pros, Apple stuff. If you like those, please don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate if you do. And no further ado, roll the intro. So, as you know, the 16-inch MacBook Pro currently is the only bigger sized MacBook in the lineup. Yes, you have a 13-inch MacBook, you have a 14-inch MacBook, you have the 13-inch MacBook Air, you have the Mac Mini, you have the iMac, which is 24 inches. But the bigger sized laptop is the 16-inch MacBook Pro, which currently is the most expensive model on the lineup. Yes, it starts at $2,500 for the M1 Pro model, and it can go up to $4,000 base price without adding up anything for the M1 Max, and that's pretty expensive. So, what should you do? Should you buy this current MacBook Pro, or should you wait for the 15-inch MacBook Air that is supposed to be coming out, which will be around the $1,600 to $1,700 price range, and it will have the M2 chip? It will be a more consumer-focused product. Should you wait for that if you want a bigger display? Well, in this video, I will explain all the differences that will probably be noticed between these two computers, and of course, the two most important features that this MacBook Pro has on top of the other one that I think you should consider before taking this long and big trip during this desert that is going to be for waiting for the 15-inch MacBook Air. So yes, as you know, the MacBook Air will be having the same redesign and the same treatment as the current 13-inch MacBook Air, because it will be having a very thin design. No more round back and sharp edges. It will be more enticed with the current iPad Pro that I have right here. Yes, more of a flat edge. It will be around the same thickness as a USB-C port, a little bit more than that. It will have the same Magic Keyboard. It will have white bezels with a notch, and all of this will be white, just like the 24-inch iMac. So it will take a lot of inspiration out of this consumer-like design from the iMac. Yes, it will be a very cool computer to see, although I'm not quite sure for those white bezels and what notch, but let's see what happens. A lot of leakers have said that this will be a mini LED display, but I'd be almost sure that it won't be a promotion, just because it's not a pro product, and so Apple probably wants to put a 60Hz mini LED display on this computer. Other things that will be different from this 15-inch MacBook Air and this 16-inch MacBook Pro will be the processor and processing power inside, just because the GPU on the M1 Max, either the M1 Pro, is going to be better than the M2 chip in general. Better CPU performance, better GPU performance. If you really need those performances, cores and performance from the GPU, then don't wait. Just get the 16-inch MacBook Pro. If you are on a tight budget, try to find the M1 Pro availably. The base model is just fine. It has a ton of battery life and it will be insane. While the 15-inch MacBook Pro will also have an amazing battery life. If you're going for the standards of the next M2 MacBook Pro, then we should expect around 18 to 20 hours of battery life, and with the 15-inch computer, we should expect the same time, a little bit more if Apple can turn the M2 chip into an even more efficient chip than the current M1. But it will also have a bigger speaker system than the current 13-inch MacBook Air. So it would mean we have an even better speaker system than the smaller sized brother. But that's another thing that's going to be different from the MacBook Pro. I don't think Apple is going to put as good of a speakers on those two computers. I don't think that this computer will be the best MacBook Pro until Apple releases the M2 Max chip. I don't think Apple will release a 15-inch MacBook Air and then suddenly it's better than this one. No. I don't think it will have some compromises, just like promotion, just like the speakers, just like the display. It probably will be mini LED, but not promotion, and maybe the RAM, and maybe the storage, and even the processor power, because that's normal, and of course the colors. It will have pretty fun and cool colors, just like the M2 MacBook Air, which is rumored. So yes, if you don't value the amount of I/O you have, like 3 USB-C, 4 ports, like HDMI port, like the SD card slot, if you don't value any of those stuff, then maybe waiting for the 15-inch MacBook Air is a good option. If your current computer is just fine, maybe waiting for that big 15-inch screen, just like the older MacBook Pros had, and a very thin design and amazing processing power from the M2, which is more than enough for you in that case. And of course, the thinness is just, and lightness is just the thing that you will be waiting for. Because this computer, although it's big, it has an amazing 16-inch display, which is mini LED and has promotion. It's a big boy. It's chunk. So yes, you better be worth and better be aware of your two differences between these computers, just because this MacBook Pro is very expensive. You have to have that in mind. It's actually from $2,500 upwards. It's very, very expensive, but that's the current entry price for a bigger sized MacBook. And so you have to think, well, should I get the M2 MacBook Air with the 15-inch size screen and wait for that, which will be around 1 year and 1 year and a half, which is not a long wait on the long run, or should I spend double the money and get, in my opinion, double the computer? But you have to think that, do I really need this much computer? Because 90% of people don't, and it's not worth it to spend the extra money. Now, is it worth it for Apple to launch this computer? That's a very interesting question, because you might be thinking, oh, of course, they will sell tons of them. But you have to be reminded that normally when a person buys this size of computer, that's because they really want to. And so when you really want to buy something this big, you don't have any other option, you end up choosing going for the 16-inch MacBook Pro, even when you don't need that extra performance. And so Apple has been selling tons of these ones just because there's a lot of people in the market that want a bigger sized MacBook Pro or even a MacBook, but they don't have any other option, so they have to pay extra. So they are obliged to pay the extra $1,000, and Apple wins those customers over to the Pro machines, and so they make them pay even much more money, and they win a lot more on these MacBook Pro buyers that probably wouldn't be buying these expensive computers if it wasn't for the bigger display. So Apple has to weigh out these things and see if we do sell enough 16-inch MacBook Pros, we probably don't need to launch a 15-inch MacBook Air. But if you really want to conquer the most amount of market share on the market from, I don't know, Windows PCs, then we have to launch something completely different and something that will completely kill the PC lineup. A very cheap, big, well-built MacBook. And I do think if Apple launches a 15-inch MacBook Air, it will be carnage everywhere. It will steal sales from every single lineup on the planet, from the MacBook Pros, from the current 13-inch MacBook Air, from the current 13-inch MacBook Pro with the M1, from the Mac Mini, from the iMac. It will steal sales from everyone. And of course, the Windows PCs, the Intel machines, and all of those, because those suck. But if Apple launches this computer, it will probably be the best-selling computer of that year, just because it's big and everyone wants a bigger display. It's cheaper than the MacBook Pros. It's actually very cheap for $1,600 to $1,500 if the rumored price is true. And it will have amazing performance. The M2 chip will be just incredible. It will have even better GPU power, and the battery life will be insane. So I'm asking myself, God, is it that good for Apple? In terms of profits, of course it is. Apple will make a ton of money on this computer. But I do think they will still prefer to sell you a more expensive computer and, of course, make an even bigger profit margin. But that's a decision that Apple has to make, and at the end of the day, we are not a part of it. But if I have to give some advice for Apple, I would say, try to make the MacBook Air the same way you made your iPad Air. A good deal on the baseline price, but very overpriced and very close to the overly priced Pro model, just like a ladder. So like you do on your current M1 iPad Air, where it starts at $599, but it only comes with 64 gigabytes of storage. So if you have and you want more storage, because that's not enough, you have to pay $729, and you think, wait, $729? That's actually very expensive, and it's only $30 less than the current iPad Pro. So I just go for the base model iPad Pro. 128 gigabytes is just enough, and of course I will get a ton of new features like quad speakers and promotion. So it's way worth it to get the iPad Pro. And then you convince the customer that would just spend $600 on your iPad, even on an iPad, to buy a $750 iPad Pro, and then sell you a pencil and then a Magic Keyboard, and then it's over $1,000 or even more, and that customer spend it without even knowing. And so I do advise Apple to do that, just because, oh, I want a base model M2 MacBook Air 15-inch. Oh, great, it's an amazing deal, and Apple will sell a bunch of those and will get a ton of market share. And then there's those that will be, oh, I really like this 15-inch MacBook Air. It has a big, cool processor. I do need that extra storage though, so let me see how it is. Extra $200 to $300. Now it starts at $19.99 or $18.99. It's only $100 less than the MacBook Pro, which has promotion, and it has more ports, and it's more portable. It has a 14-inch screen, which is huge. It has probably better camera, speakers, and of course the M1 Pro. So I think I will go for the MacBook Pro, please. And they end up spending the extra 100, or even spending a little bit more on accessories, just like a little bit more RAM, and then a little bit more gigabytes of storage, and then they end up spending $2,300-$2,400, and then they go happy home with their current 14-inch MacBook Pro, and you just upsell them on a very cool computer. And so, yes, I do think this strategy will be looking towards like having a ladder, filling a space that is currently right now void. So the space between the M1 MacBook Pro 13-inch and the M1 Pro MacBook Pro 14-inch. I think Apple wants to fill that space with a ladder, which will be the M2 MacBook Air 15-inch, and of course an option for those who want a bigger sized screen, but they don't want to pay bigger sized money for a 16-inch MacBook Pro. And be attentive, because Apple is also implementing this strategy on other lineups. iPad Air, done. But if you think about it, there's also something brewing in the iPhone lineup. As you know, this year the iPhone mini will be killed, no more iPhone 14 mini, and will be replaced with an entirely new model, the iPhone 14 Max. And yes, this model will be another ladder for the iPhone 14 Pro, because it will be probably $100 cheaper than the Pro. It will have probably less storage, and when you think about it, maybe it's a good deal for the Pro, because you get promotion, you get an extra camera, probably get extra RAM, and the same amount of storage. So let's see what happens. I do expect that this iPhone 14 Pro will be the best deal between those two, but even the 14 Max will probably start at $799, $849, and if you want more storage, you have to go for $949, and then you're only like $50 or $100 away from the iPhone 14 Pro. So this is a ladder, and these types of products that Apple launches that don't seem like a good deal when compared to others, they're just a ladder for people that, oh, I want this product, not Pro, it's cheaper, $200 cheaper, but if you want a bit more storage and if you want to customize it to yourself, if you don't buy the base model, then it turns out it's a terrible deal and pushes you for the more expensive models. So this is a ladder, or even electronic staircase, if you want to say that, and Apple will implement this strategy on their iPhone lineup, on their Mac lineup with the M2 MacBook Air 15-inch, and they have currently implemented that on the M1 iPad Air, because that's just a ladder for the current M1 iPad Pro 11-inch. But what are your thoughts on this strategy from Apple? Do you think this 15-inch MacBook Air with the M2 chip is a good deal? Do you think, is it a good deal compared to this M1 Max MacBook Pro 16-inch, just because this one has an amazing ProMotion LED, which is incredible display. It has the M1 Max chip, which is one of the fastest chips I've ever used, and let me know, it has more I/O, so let me know in the comments down below which one do you prefer, which one would you buy, and would you wait for the 15-inch MacBook Air, which will be, in my opinion, a pretty cool product, but not more than a ladder on this bigger scheme of things. But let me know in the comments down below what's your opinion, and while you're there, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, follow my social networks, Twitter and Instagram. This was Texmo talking to you here. Bye.